Let's wrap up the week by taking a look at how Bitcoin and the market are doing. Last night there was a conflict between Israel and Iran, which caused a strong movement in the market. We've seen positive movements on one hand and negative movements on the other. In fact, if we look, for example, at oil, we can see that there has been a strong upward movement. You already know that when there are military conflicts, oil prices usually skyrocket at that moment. But obviously, since the military conflict was resolved relatively quickly, we saw a spike upward, and now we're starting to recover little by little. On the other hand, we have gold, which today has once again reached all-time highs. Literally, right now it's at $3,442, and we've seen negative movements in the stock market, equities, and in Bitcoin. In the SP 500, we've had a correction practically from all-time highs at 6,000 points down to about 5,900 points, but it quickly recovered, and right now we're once again above 6,000 points. All of this suggests that today, Friday, when the market closes, we're going to have a daily candle closing above 6,000 points, which is a very good sign and gives us some clarity that the market wants to keep going up. In this regard, I want you to be very clear about something, because we're going to move on to Bitcoin, and that is that there's a pretty significant conflict. We're in a bull market, a bullish market, but nevertheless, retail investors, regular people like you and me, are very pessimistic. In other words, the vast majority of people right now are positioned as bears. That is, they're bears, a lot of bears. People like you and me are in bear mode, in seller mode, in a pessimistic mindset, expecting that this could drop at any moment, because they believe Bitcoin is very expensive. It's above $105,000. Right now, it has spent practically the whole week around the $110,000 mark, and there's a lot of pessimism. But what we need to care about is that there's a super bull, meaning right now there's a super bull that's going to drive the market, and that's institutional money. That's the super bull we have at this moment, a bull that's going to sweep away all the bears. All those people who are positioned bearishly, all those retail investors who are bearish, are going to be wiped out by the bulls. Why? Because we've seen how investment funds like BlackRock with their ETF are buying Bitcoins hand over fist at all-time highs around $110,000. Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy buying more Bitcoins at all-time highs, investment funds, all kinds of institutions buying Bitcoins at all-time highs. And here I want to ask you something that you should already take for granted and use logic, because I've explained it 100,000 times here. Who do you think is right? Your local Baker Manolo, or the top economist working for these investment funds? Your Baker Manolo who says, wow, this is very expensive, it should go down, which is obviously the logic. Obviously, if it is not accompanied by knowledge of how the situation is, of what is happening. But really, even though we're all-time highs right now, at this moment for Bitcoin, yes, we're all-time highs, but there's still a much longer road ahead. There's still a whole year ahead, and 2025 is still ahead of us. You already know that I estimate we won't see the peak of this cycle until the last quarter, and there's still room for growth. In fact, as you know, I estimate that we could still see around a 100% return with Bitcoin reaching the $200,000 range between $180,000 and $200,000. You know, that's my prediction for this year, for this cycle, so I still believe there's room to grow. And for an investment fund, which obviously manages all of this and stays on top of things, well, seeing Bitcoin at a price of $110,000 or $105,000, they still consider it a very good opportunity, because there's still a chance to get a good return from now until the end of the year. However, everyone else is pessimistic, thinking that all of this is going to hell, thinking that, well, we're already at the peak, just wait for a correction, and that's it. That Bitcoin has already given everything it had to give, but we're very mistaken. Besides the fact that, as I've been telling you, I still believe Bitcoin has room to grow. As we've seen, let's move on to altcoins, because, as you know, and as we've discussed many times here on this channel, they still haven't made their move. In other words, there hasn't even been a single alt season yet. While Bitcoin is here, just going up non-stop and hitting new all-time highs every other day, altcoins are in the absolute worst state. But there's something happening on a technical level that I really like. Let's talk about the technical side first, and then we'll get into the fundamentals. With Ethereum, here's what's going on. Right now, we're looking at Ethereum on the daily chart, and take a look at this little detail. We have the 200 period moving average, which is this green line you can see here on the screen. Let me make it bigger for you, this green line, which, as we've seen over the past month, Ethereum has been trying to break through. On June 10th, we finally broke through it. For now, today, we're below it, but it's still too early. There's still a lot of time left in this candle. In other words, at the time of this recording, there are 10 hours to go, so it's possible that we could move back above this moving average. But what I want you to notice here is that the 200 period moving average is about to cross with the 20 period moving average, which is this yellow one here. And when these moving averages cross upwards, there is usually a strong bullish movement. But then the 50 period moving average, which is this red one here and is still below, if it continues like this, in the next month or two, it should also cross above the 200 period moving average, which is this green one here, as I mentioned, and that would give even more strength to the bullish movement. In other words, right now, folks, just so you get an idea, notice that we've basically, where is it? Basically here, since February, that is since the beginning of this year, we've had these moving averages below the 200 period moving average. as soon as the 20 period moving average on the daily chart crosses above the 200 period moving average, and then the 50 period moving average also crosses above the 200, we are going to see a very strong bullish movement for Ethereum. First, the crossover with the 20 period moving average, the green line crossing the yellow line. So you can see it clearly here on the screen and understand it signals a strong bullish movement. I believe this bullish move will be the one that takes Ethereum back to the $4,000 zone. This area here, where in this cycle we have already been several times. We were here in March 2024, we were here in May 2024, we were here in December 2024, and possibly this month or next month we will be back here again in the $4,000 zone. Then, once Ethereum has reached that $4,000 zone again, if we stay there, it's just a matter of waiting for the next moving average to come along the 50 period moving average, the red one end, for it to do the same, to also cross over the 200 period moving average and give Ethereum even more bullish momentum to finally break through these $4,000. So we can see the long-awaited alt season. That is to say, for now, on a technical level, it seems that certain patterns are being fulfilled, which, as I've already told you, I really like, because given how things are fundamentally, with everything we have ahead of us, which I've mentioned to you many times, and we'll go over some of those things again, plus this, we clearly have, I'd say, a 95% probability that we are definitely going to see the alt season in 2025, whether it's sooner or later. But in 2025, we have to see that alt season, which depends 100% on Ethereum. I've also told you this many times. Forget about what's happening with the altcoins individually right now. I mean, I'm not even going to bother looking at Cardano or Polkadot or Solana or any others, not Avalanche, not Rose, none of them. Let's focus solely on Ethereum, because whatever Ethereum does is what's going to set the tone for the rest of the altcoins. I think that's very clear to you all. If Ethereum takes off, the altcoins are going to take off with it. And that's where the bulk of the money is, what's left to be made in this market cycle. So for now, keep a close eye on Ethereum, because from a technical standpoint, it's just a few weeks, maybe days away from making that moving average crossover, which would trigger a strong upward move. On the other hand, more positive news, but this time more on the fundamental side. In the last 3 days, we've seen large inflows of money into the Ethereum ETF, roughly speaking. In fact, just to give you an idea, even in the last 2 days, more money has flowed into the Ethereum ETF than into the Bitcoin ETF. That is something that hadn't happened yet. This hadn't happened until now. Look here. On June 11th, 2024, a total of approximately $133 million in net inflow was invested into the Bitcoin spot ETF. However, during the same period, an even larger sum, about $240 million, was directed into the Ethereum ETF. In other words, it had never happened before that more money, almost double, in a single day went into the Ethereum ETF than into the Bitcoin ETF. But then on June 12th, we see an inflow of 79 million into the Bitcoin ETF and 112 million into the Ethereum ETF. So once again, we find that for another day, more money is flowing into the Ethereum ETF than into the Bitcoin ETF. In other words, we are seeing how interest in the Ethereum ETF is starting to grow. And as you know, this is the main gateway for liquidity into Ethereum, just as it has been for Bitcoin, which is why we are at all-time highs, and it will be the same for Ethereum. So pay close attention, everyone, because everything is starting to line up. More important news. The other day, the US inflation data was released. It was better than expected. The monthly forecast was 0.2, but it came in at 0.1. In other words, they expected inflation to rise by 0.2. In the end, it didn't increase that much. It rose by 0.1, which is a good sign. It means they have inflation pretty much under control, and as you know, that's quite bullish. The forecast was for inflation to rise to 2.5. We were at 2.3, and the expectation was for it to go up to 2.5. However, it's actually at 2.4, so it hasn't increased as much as they expected, and that's good for the market. If it had been worse than expected, it would have been negative for the market. If it had been as we expected, it would have been relatively neutral. In other words, there wouldn't have been much movement. But since it turned out better than expected, that also gives the market upward momentum. On the other hand, we know that next week, on June 18th, we have the Fed meeting about interest rates. I'm just reminding you of this so you keep it in mind. Obviously, we know that there won't be any movement. They're neither going to raise nor lower interest rates. There's a 96.9% probability that things will remain neutral. Obviously, I think the same, since this indicator has never ever failed, but just so you're aware of June 18th, because even though there won't be any change in interest rates, as you know, Powell's words usually move the market. That is, if he says something negative, we might see a slight correction. If he says something positive, then we'll probably see a nice little uptick in the market. And then after this meeting, we'll have to wait until July 30th for the next one. And as I was saying, right, that is, I estimate that until the last 3 meetings of this year, which are in September, October, and December, we're not going to see any kind of interest rate cuts for now. On the other hand, the fear and greed index is at 61 points. That is, we're seeing that we're in the greed zone, but it's not like there's an overwhelming amount of greed. In other words, even though Bitcoin is at all-time highs, as we've seen, it's at 61 points. So it's not really one of those times where you'd say, wow, extreme greed, euphoria, everyone's talking about Bitcoin. No. This indicator is showing us what most people are talking about right now. It's true that there is greed, but it's not all the way at the symbol, right? What would be considered extreme greed, which is what would really signal a full-blown bull run. Everyone is talking about Bitcoin. Your shoemaker talks to you about Bitcoin. Your baker talks to you about Bitcoin. Everyone is buying Bitcoin. Everyone is in absolute euphoria. That feeling, we still haven't experienced it yet. And then, if we look at the general sentiment for all the altcoins and Bitcoin, because what I just showed you is only for Bitcoin, but here we can see the overall one, it's at 54 points, which is a neutral zone. In other words, there really isn't even any euphoria. That is, it's true that there isn't extreme pessimism in the market either, but there's no euphoria either. In other words, we are at a neutral point, and being at a neutral point in a bull market and in a phase just before a major explosive move for Bitcoin and the rest of the market, well, it's a good sign that says, hey, we're about to start doing things right. If you're out of the market and haven't positioned yourself, then get positioned, focus, and let's try to make some money in what's left of this cycle, right? Because after that, well, normally things would calm down, things would settle, and we'd be waiting for the next crypto winter. But for now, this year, 2025, ladies and gentlemen, you have to take advantage of it. That is to say, you can still take advantage and make money in this cycle. Afterward, if not, then the work becomes longer term and more drawn out. Obviously, the world of cryptocurrencies will continue to yield returns. As you already know, I firmly believe that in time, Bitcoin will reach $1 million, whether that's in 2030 or within the next 10 years. It's not exactly the same, but just knowing that the probability is so high that it will reach 1 million from now on, given how everything is, gives us a lot of room to prepare our strategies, our long-term investments, so that in the future we can build a solid portfolio, a good retirement, a strong net worth, or obtain enough liquidity to then diversify and create good financial stability for yourself and your family, right? After all, that's the goal of this channel, Ohana Finanzas. As you've already seen, we now have the official name of my channel for this new cycle, Ohana Finanzas. Down here we have the new Instagram, which I recommend you follow me on, Ohana Finanzas. It's a new Instagram account we've created for the channel where we'll be posting extra content, bonus content, since there are some things we can't upload here on YouTube, but we can share them on Instagram. We have the Telegram group where we share all the information so you can stay completely up to date. Ohana Finanzas Official. And then just a reminder, if you want to learn how to make money in the world of cryptocurrencies in an easy, simple, and above all, completely free way for all of you, join Ohana Trading Club. In Ohana Trading Club, as you already know, we have a professional trader who is with you every day, 24/7, giving classes, teaching everything he knows, sharing his signals, doing his daily market analysis, and is 100% free for you. This service has been active for 2.5 years now. It has always been 100% free for you, and it will continue to be. So I recommend that you join Ohana Trading Club VIP. Down below in the video description, you have the instructions to send your application and sign up. And once you're in there, you can start learning and making money, because as I always say, knowledge is power. And nowadays, knowing how to make money from home, especially in the financial world, whether it's with cryptocurrencies, traditional trading, or the stock market world, honestly, it's a real advantage. It's something that, wow, brings you closer to that freedom, right? To be able to say, I know how to make my own money and I don't need to go work for some guy who pays me a salary, you know? You do it yourself from home. And little by little, you manage yourself. You keep improving improve your moves, your strategies, your risk management, your diversification, your portfolio, call it whatever you want. And from there, it's about growing in a stable and consistent way, right? Here on the channel, over the next few years, we're going to focus mainly on growing financially, building wealth in a stable, conservative way, and using the world of cryptocurrencies to give it that boost, that extra push to try to get us closer, faster to that long-awaited financial freedom. In the end, what I'm going to try to share with you here on this channel isn't science fiction. It's not something I've read about. It's not something I've seen in movies. It's what I myself have done throughout my life. That is to say, how I myself, throughout my entire professional career, have little by little been creating, growing, until I was able to reach that long for financial freedom that everyone wants, right? So from here, I'm going to be sharing with you bit by bit the things I've been doing myself so that you can do it too. And as you've already seen, it's not necessary to be rich, to come from a wealthy family, or to have large amounts of money. In fact, with the video I shared with you yesterday, you've already seen that with small habits like saving €5 or dollars a day, which you could stop spending on smoking, drugs, alcohol, or any other unnecessary indulgence in your daily life. Just with that amount of €5 or dollars a day, you really do have the ability to achieve freedom in the future, a good retirement, and to live with a comfortable, pleasant lifestyle. And above all, to be financially free, right? Which is what matters most. So I recommend that you stay up to date with everything, that you subscribe to the channel with the notification bell turned on, that you watch all the videos, all the shows we upload, follow me on Instagram as I mentioned, join the Telegram group, and above all, that you're in the Ohana Trading Club VIP, learning every day, trading every day, whether it's short term, medium term, or long term, learning to use bots. In fact, these days that I'm more active on social media, I'm seeing your comments and such from people who have made a lot of money with the free green bots that Bitget offers, which, by the way, If you're not signed up on BitGet, sign up, register, since it's free, obviously, to register. And if you do it using the link down below in the description, you get a 10% discount on fees and free access to Ohana Trading Club VIP. In other words, the only condition to have access to Ohana Trading Club VIP is that you are registered on BitGet with our link. With that alone, you already have access, and then all the trades you make day to day, whether swing trading, long term, any trade you make on BitGet, you get that 10% discount and lifetime access to Ohana Trading Club VIP. So you can keep learning and putting into practice everything you develop and all the knowledge you acquire within Ohana Trading Club VIP. So from here, as you can see, I try to do everything I can to bring you all kinds of tools, information, knowledge, and to give you that clearer perspective. Above all, without any kind of bias, right? Nor emotion, because in the end, that's something crucial so that each and every one of you can really, little by little, achieve it. Because in the end, there's no point in following motivated people who are super euphoric and think that all of this is just going to keep going up endlessly. And it's also not realistic to follow pessimistic people who think that everything is going to fall apart and that really no one is going to gain anything here. That all of this is just a financial bubble, right? So to speak. You have to be aware, realistic, and above all, take action. Because if you don't take action, no one is going to come and do it for you. If you don't go out there to chase after money, to actually do something to build wealth, no one is going to come and say to you, here, you have millions of dollars to invest. Here you have a fortune of who knows how many properties. Here you have who knows how many bitcoins, who knows how many shares. No one is going to do anything for you. You have to be the one who, little by little, is steadily and diligently building and nurturing and cultivating all of that wealth, which one day will ultimately give you the true freedom and genuine peace of mind for both you and your whole family. And from here, as I've told you before, it's absolutely true that throughout my life, I've always had that particular obsession, with having that deep sense of peace of mind, that lasting and enduring financial stability and security for the future, for yourself and for those you care about most, right? To ask myself, why do I have to go out every single day and wear myself out, both physically and mentally, exhausting my energy and spirit, just to be able to pay my bills and cover all my necessary living expenses, when if I do things right, stay consistent and maintain discipline over time, I can actually build up enough resources so that my wealth eventually works for me rather than me always working for it. In other words, why should I be the one going out there every day to wear myself out when I could sacrifice a few years of my life to build up some wealth, a solid foundation, and then have that wealth and those foundations work for me, generating income and providing me with financial stability in the future? And that's what I want to convey to you here. That in the end, if you manage to create something, and once you've created it, you know how to work it well, you know how to make it work for you, you can truly have your life sorted out for the rest of your days. In the end, as I've told you many times as well, the hardest thing in this life is reaching your first million. Once you reach your first million, from there on it just depends on how much of an idiot you are or not. If you reach your first million and you're thinking about Ferraris, Lamborghinis, parties, VIP club rooms, super expensive trips to luxury resorts, I don't know, yachts, hookers, drugs, crap like that, obviously you're going to go from $1 million to being completely broke. But if you use that million to make it work for you, it will keep growing and give you that stability. In the end, one of the things about money is that you can make it work for you. And money isn't going to ask you for explanations. It's not going to say, hey, I don't feel like going to work today. Hey, I have a headache today. Hey, today I'd rather take a break. Hey, I want you to pay me a salary. Or I want you to pay me a salary, sorry. Or I want you to pay for my healthcare. Or I want you to pay me who knows how much. Money doesn't get tired. Money doesn't take breaks. Money doesn't ask you for explanations. Money simply works and attracts more money. And in the end, if you manage to create and nurture that financial wealth, that garden, money will eventually be attracted to it. It's like when you cultivate a beautiful garden and that garden starts to attract butterflies, ladybugs, little pretty bugs, so to speak, and birds come to drink from the stream or pond in your garden. In other words, in the end, it comes to you. The same thing happens with money. When you create money and know how to manage it well, money attracts more money. But of course, it depends a lot on how your mind is set up. If you say, hey, I'm a person with vices, I love indulgence, I love showing and flaunting to everyone what I have, what I earn, and I want everyone to know that I'm a multimillionaire, walking down the street with my Lamborghini, having an incredible mansion that costs me 10,000 euros a month or whatever it is that it costs you. If you're someone who squanders money, hey, I like going to clubs and I like wearing super expensive designer brands, having an outfit that costs more than 5,000 or even 10,000 euros, or I like wearing a 20,000 euro Rolex on my wrist, or if I go out partying every weekend, I like to spend 2,000 euros in a VIP lounge, inviting everyone and all that. That's just being an idiot. And the only thing you're going to achieve with that is obviously to ruin yourself and lose everything. But if you manage to make an effort to sacrifice a few years of your life, maybe by sacrificing 5 years of your life, you can reach that significant amount that right now you might not even have, and use that amount to start growing, and create that snowball effect that I've explained to you many times. But it depends a lot on you, on what you do as a person. And there are people, the other day, I read a comment on one of the videos where I mentioned to you that someone said to me, David, but if you do this or that, that's not living. What kind of life is that? And I said, get this into your head because I think it's necessary for you to really believe it. I'm going to put the screen big like this so you can see me better. Someone said to me in a comment, David, but what kind of life is that? If you're saving 10% of what you earn, investing it for years, and when you have a certain amount saved up, instead of spending it on travel or little luxuries and so on, you're investing it like that, you're not enjoying life. And do you know what I said? I said, look, the main problem we have right now in Spain, especially here, but also in the rest of the world, though I talk about Spain because it's what I know, what I see, my environment and everything, is that people love to enjoy themselves. We see people in my age group. I'm in the age range between 30 and 40 years old. Between 30 and 40 years old, I've done everything in life. I've studied, I've worked, I've started businesses, I have companies, I have assets, I have properties, I have children, I have a wife, I have a roof over my head, I have my car, I have my things. I've done things right, but I've sacrificed an important part of my youth. I've sacrificed an important part of my youth where I didn't go out partying for years. I didn't buy myself luxuries for years. I didn't travel for years. I invested everything for years. And I also lost a lot of money over the years. I have sacrificed myself. And right now, in my age group, I can say I can enjoy life. I'm still working my ass off, and I'll keep working until I die. But I can enjoy my life. Having achieved what's normal for someone my age, which is having stability. But nevertheless, the big problem people have nowadays is that from enjoying themselves so much, from enjoying so much, today they have no future. You see people between 30 and 40 years old who live with their parents and have no possibility of buying a house. You see people in their 30s and 40s who don't have children or a stable partner, and they're not even considering it. You see people between 30 and 40 years old who don't even have their own car or a car that's paid off. You see people between 30 and 40 years old who are getting close to 40 and their lives look like they're going to stay exactly the same in the coming years. As a result, you're ruining your future. You're giving up your independence because I wouldn't want to keep living with my parents. Obviously, people who do it do so out of necessity, but in 95% of cases, those people bring that necessity upon themselves. Because these same people who live with their parents, who don't have their own house, who don't have their own car, they can complain and say 1,000 things. They say, no, it's the government, the economy, this and that, complaining about 1,000 different things. But the fucking reality is that all these years you've been going out partying every damn weekend, spending your money every weekend, blowing your cash, you've got luxury handbags, you wear €200 sneakers, you wear designer clothes that not even millionaires wear. I mean, or me, for example, I don't spend money on luxuries or crap, but people who can't even make it to the end of the month do spend it. The latest iPhone, trips, traveling here and there to Dubai, to Thailand, all that, and you see them on Instagram and in their stories, and you think, damn man, how is it possible that this person with a regular job is living such an amazing life, and what an incredible outfit they have, right? What an amazing car they have. Like, what an incredible trip they're taking, right? Damn, every single weekend they're going all out in the VIP lounge. And so much enjoyment. But what happens nowadays? Damn, I'm 35 years old and I still don't have a house. I live with my parents. Damn, I don't know. I'm a 35-year-old woman and I still don't have kids. Nor have I found someone to have emotional stability with. And on top of that, time is running out for me. Like, time is running out for me to have children. And you come across those kinds of people. And that's why it really pisses me off when I say here, sacrifice. Sacrifice a few years of your life saving, investing in yourself and your future, because in the end, you'll be grateful for it. You know, I mean, right now, if those people think about it, they realize they've been caught off guard and that they need to get their act together starting now. It's like starting at 35 as if you were 20, you know? Saying, damn, now that I've realized I messed up, I enjoy myself so much, I have to start saving, I have to stop enjoying myself. And in the end, I'll have kids at 45. I'll move out on my own in my 40s, and I'll finally have my house paid off when I'm 70, someday in the future. And pray to find a stable partner so we can combine our two salaries and finally move out, because otherwise it's impossible. And all of that, the pure reality is for enjoyment. Enjoy. That's why the other day when I saw that comment, David, if you spend 5 years of your life investing and sacrificing things, you don't enjoy yourself. Because honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. You know, I've sacrificed years of my youth. I've sacrificed many years of my youth between 20 and 30 years old. I've given up a lot of years from the best time, right? As people say, I've sacrificed those years. And right now, between 30 and 40, I can say, what a blessed sacrifice, you know? The best thing I've ever done in my fucking life. Because right now, I'm doing fucking great. I've achieved everything I wanted in life. Why? Because I sacrificed. And do I regret it? No, of course I don't regret it. I mean, I think you enjoy your 30s to 40s way more if you did things right in your 20s rather than just messing around in your 20s when you're just a kid. What are you even going to do? blowing your money on fucking luxuries. Fucking when you're in your 20s and 30s, you should be studying, working, training yourself, and building your own future, laying down a foundation, which right now, today's generation is just, they're out of it. We have a generation of idiots. Literally, that I don't get it. When you go out on the street, everyone is complaining, but no one does anything to fix it. So no, people, get your act together. Sacrificing yourself is necessary if you want to reach certain goals. Investing is necessary. Saving is necessary. Get that into your head. If you don't do these things, obviously you're not going to achieve anything in life. Nothing. You just stay the same, just like now. If you're in a bad place now, well, if you keep doing the same thing, you'll still be in a bad place 10 years from now. And if you keep doing the same thing, in 20 years, you'll be in an even worse place because you'll be older and still stuck in the same mess. So with these words, which are a bit harsher, I'm telling you, wake up, make sacrifices. If you want results, sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. In the end, the universe demands equivalence. You want this, you have to give this. You want this, you have to give this. If you want this and you give nothing, you're going to get nothing. So from here, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I truly wish you a very good weekend. Please enjoy yourselves to the fullest, but always use your head. Enjoy as you would obviously expect without doing all the crazy things that people usually do. Enjoy, but as I always say, do it wisely, save, invest. I mean, you can enjoy yourself by going for a walk on the beach, sunbathing, spending time with your partner, your kids, your dog. You don't need to go spend 200 euros at a nightclub or go to a fancy restaurant. Take the money you're going to save this weekend and invest a little in Bitcoin, a little in the SP 500. Save it. And I assure you that in a few years, you'll be grateful you did. I'm 100% sure of it. I mean, I bet anything that anyone who does this will be thankful in a few years. And you'll remember me and say, wow, David, you were so right. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. This time I'm really saying goodbye. Sending you a big hug, best wishes, and see you next time.